Hi, I'm Jessica Cabrera, and I wanted to tell a story about 3 watershed years that taught me what to do with doubt. So the first one was in 2016. 2016 was one of those kind of years where everything sort of fell apart. And the details of the story don't matter that much for what I'm talking about here. But it was the kind of situation where everything that made me feel like I had a solid foothold in my life had suddenly turned to quicksand. And just like Pastor Jane talked about in her sermon on Sunday, I had to learn that year to find all the little stuff that brought me hope. Because it wasn't going to be the big ocean flood of hope like I was looking for. But it would be a friend sending me a hey, just checking in text message at just the right minute. Or the cup of coffee that turned out just right when everything else was turning out just wrong. Or on the worst days, it would be something simple like closing my eyes and feeling the sun on my face and knowing that that warmth and comfort was coming from God. Because if everything else went away, at least there was the sky and the sun. So that year was tough. And then along came 2020. And I don't think I have to explain to anybody exactly how that world felt completely upside down and confusing and scary. But luckily, I had already had a whole year of practice learning how to find the small pieces of hope inside of a year that felt upside down. So in 2020, what I was able to do was speak hope, because I'd had practice, into the lives of other folks. And what was interesting was that I found that I didn't have to pretend like it wasn't scary, right? Because I had a 3:00 appointment every day at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020 to hide in a closet and cry. Like I knew that I had to hold it together until 3:00, and then I had my 10 minutes to fall apart before I had to go be the face that other people looked to for the rest of the day. And I found that not having to pretend that everything was okay and not scary, it helped some with the doubt, because pretending like everything was okay made me feel like a fake. And when you feel like a fake, that's a great spot for doubt to start to creep in. So it was okay to acknowledge that sometimes things were scary and sometimes things were dark. And this is how you find the small piece of hope inside of the thing that's scary, inside of the thing that's confusing, and inside of the thing that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. At least there's sun on your face, or a good cup of coffee, or a friend who checks in at just the right minute. And 2020 went by, and we have found ourselves here in 2021, and it still feels like the beginning of the year, even though it's September. But at the actual beginning of this year, after years of medical tests and trying to figure things out, I found myself diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And all of a sudden, even though I had reached a place where I was able to think about what the future might look like again, that future didn't look anything like anything I had ever imagined before. So I found myself needing to find those small pieces of hope more and more. And I found myself laying awake in my bed one night, staring at the ceiling, worrying. Because for me, doubt looks like worrying. Worrying is laying awake at night and doubting that everything's going to turn out okay and that God's got control of what's going on. So you lay awake and you worry about how things are going to turn out. And I was laying there, and God gave me a little nudge and reminded me about the 2 years that I'd had before, when everything fell apart. And even when it was dark, and even when it was scary, he was still sitting with me through all of that. Because the dark moments and the scary moments, when I stopped pretending that they weren't there, I realized were the moments when I was growing. Those were the moments when I was learning. Those were the moments when I was developing empathy for other people's hard moments. Those were the moments when I was learning how to be hopeful. Those were the moments when I was learning to serve others. Those were the moments that made me better, and even though they hurt, and even though they were scary, and even though they were uncertain, I know that the hand of God was in them all. So as I was laying awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling and worrying, and then God reminded me one thing that crystallized into a single sentence for me, and that was, I can trust God with my future. Because even in the scary stuff, his hand was always there for all of it. I can trust God with my future. I might not get the rosy, happy ending that I imagined when I was 20. Things are not going to turn out exactly like I envisioned they would. But in the dark and scary places, I know that those things are sacred because God is sitting closer to me in those times than in any other time in my life. I can trust God with my future. And that, for me, is the antidote to doubt.